life is fleeting, and like, you know, experiences are ephemeral. We are all going to lose everything in the end. So appreciate what you have in the moment that you're having it. And it doesn't mean that you only live in the moment, that you never think of anything that's come before or that's coming ahead. It's just that it has to be a balance, and and to take stock, not to over appreciate or under appreciate, but just to, you know, to be at, you know, it kind of boils down to being the best that you can be, and appreciating as much as what you can, and not being greedy. The idea that, you know, you could hold on to somebody forever, like, what is forever anyway?
Yes.
It's funny we even came up with the word.
Yeah.
It's funny we even came up with the word forever, I find. It's
my
like,
mom has
so
a saying, is a year is a long, what does she say? Forever is a long time, but a year is sometimes longer.
Yes.
It's like, that's how she put it to me when I was a kid, and it's just always stuck with me, because it blows apart that concept, because it is a sense, it's a feeling. It doesn't, because what else do we have to prove that forever is a thing?
Yeah.
It's just it's a period of time.
It's a funny word, because we actually, if you think about it, we use it a lot of times to devalue anything that isn't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're either with someone forever, or it's a shitty failed relationship.
Yeah.
You don't think about, like, oh, I was with this person for 10 years. What an amazing experience. It's like, it wasn't forever. And we just sort of like, oh, we apologize. It's an interesting word.
It is, yeah. It's like, because on the note of relationships, I mean, even if it didn't last, I'm sure both parties learned from each other and grew and are a bit better after having had the experience, even if it ended painfully. It's like, because, well, one thing that I find amazing is that people could have just their hearts absolutely ripped out of their chest and have the worst falling out with someone ever, and there are some people who literally will just swear off of relationships forever, but most people will go and get into another relationship knowing full well what the actual risk is. And I think people are so damn courageous. They don't give themselves enough credit.
I know.
The fact that people will get hurt by other people. Some people will be out for your destruction. Like, there are malevolent people out there, and you might encounter one. And then the fact that people can still go in and engage in deep, meaningful, close relationships with other people despite past trauma like that, that's amazing. It's amazing everyone isn't just locking themselves in their closet forever. Just like,
I know. I honestly believe, like, I do think, you know, I have that deep belief that love is probably the only thing that understands eternity. I think it's that thread that is woven through everything. And I believe, like, when I think of my dad, to go back there, like, you know, and I lost a really good friend this past year, like, I feel this sense that there is this thread that gets woven together that can't be pulled apart. Mm-hmm. And even though, you know, she's not alive and her mind is gone, and he's not alive, so his mind is gone, that container that held memories and all those little things that are human things, there's something about that thread of love, and I think that's why we're able, no matter what happens to us, to come back to it, because I think it's just in there somewhere, somehow. Like, I don't know how, I deeply believe that. I'm not even sure the word, I think we use the word a lot, and yet it's one of those words that is so, the truth of it is so powerful. We all feel something when the word is spoken. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the word is, and I'm a writer, so I love words, but and I'm just seeing love as, my 4-year-old niece we did some art the other day, and love is sitting on the wall there.
I mean, how many people have the little love tattoo or
right?
something? Like, it's some kind of...
We've made a small word for something we all get. All of us, without words, energetically. Like, think about it. Think about, like, a woman who's pregnant. Without even having met that person yet that's coming. The first story is love. The very first story, before you know anything, any words, any relationship, that exists before you even leave the womb.
If things go well.
True.
Yeah. Some people have some people get brought into the world in the most crazy circumstances I can only imagine. I mean,
I know.
I can't imagine a situation where a woman would be completely without love for a child, but it happens some of the time where there's perhaps it's less than ideal, to say the least, I'm sure. So some people, I haven't like met people of this nature particularly, but I feel like some people, like, how do I say what I'm trying to say? My brain is so like not connecting dots well today.
It's all the relaxation.
Yeah. Too much floating. Shout out to Lindsay at the flotation center.
Yes, for sure. Don't try to talk afterwards.
Yeah. But I mean, you could people who are the product of rape, for example, and then someone whose parents didn't want the child, or just the situation, they're impoverished and malnourished and all sorts of other things. I mean, I've heard a story about this one woman who, for one reason or another, lost her mother at a very young age, and she was reporting to a psychotherapist that just like some deep thing was ripped out of her that could never be put back, and it's like that mother's love and trust.
Yes.
And so I think, provided that the ideal situation is going on to the degree that that's possible, you know, the mother is the one who literally carries you when you're completely helpless and defenseless, and instills that trust that you're being held and you're being provided for and being cared for, and when you scream for whatever reason, someone's going to come and sort things out for you. And then if someone doesn't get that kind of a platform, then that just wrecks them for life. There's like no fixing that when someone doesn't get that, because they're completely unable to just even live without any kind of sense that anything's going to be okay ever, because like infants that aren't touched by a human will just die. That's the craziest thing. So even if it's not necessarily the case for 100% of people, I think that it's nonetheless it's as essential as like having water and healthy food. It's like having love and having human connection like that.
There is definitely something about it that matters. You know, that matters to our whole human experience. You know, there is this theory that we exist fully in relationship. So we are in relationship to the people and the experiences and things in our lives. And if you just plop somebody down without any of that, is there even some kind of life or existence there? You know, that same idea of like, if you were alone, if you just put one person in space, what are they without anything else?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's solitary confinement and the consequences of solitary
confinement. Because, like, I mean, first of all, you're born a human being, so there's biological things at work. Like, babies are born with the ability to play and to mimic and admire, and babies can also babble every phonetic sound from every language, which is crazy. It's like...
That is crazy.
And so when they start learning the language that is going to... like, the language spoken around them... It's like the beginnings of that infinite potential kind of dying into the tradition that they're born into, and but when a baby's just babbling, they go through every single possible like phonetic noise, which is crazy. But anyway, so there's like the capacity to learn and speak and to play. Like you can play with a baby and do peekaboo and stuff and tickle it. And anyway, so there's these baseline things. Like, because a lot of people think that you're just born and you can just be absolutely any old thing if you're raised in any old way, which is just not the case. There's a nature to human beings. Yeah. And but then from there though, like your social context and the environment at large and the experiences you have, all that stuff shapes you for sure. And a person without any of that stuff, is it a person? Like,
well, and that's the thing. You think of like, you know, if something bad happens and it sort of puts you on one path, the truth of the matter is you might be capable of coming off that path, but that's dependent on other things. Mm-hmm. You know, is information or possibility put in your path again that allows you to heal, to undo or to alter the path you're on? Like it's it's all relative.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you become is constantly related to what's happening around you.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that is limited. We're
Mm-hmm.
not all going to come across this item. We're not all going to come across this experience. At some point, you know, I could have been something different had a different set of experiences been put in front of me. So it's the same thing, right? It's, you know, you can say that, oh, if somebody's had this awful experience, but we're all human and we're all capable of love and healing and this. Sure, but not if we don't all come across the same bag of tricks.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, our lives are about the things we find and get and are given.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it,
right?
For sure. There's an arbitrary element to life too, where, you know, just crap's just gonna happen to you, and it's like, did someone do something to deserve that random thing that happened? It's like, that's kind of a lot of weight to put on somebody, perhaps, or like, oh, you just got diagnosed with cancer, you know, so you gotta tell someone it's their fault, you know, say that's not necessarily the right thing, and just accidents happen, lightning strike, you got struck by lightning, you know, did you deserve that strike of lightning? Was that God smiting you or something? Or I think there is just this crazy, it's one of the things that we're negotiating with, and it's one of the functions of a well-functioning culture, is to try and like there's an idea in Christianity where it's like the Garden of Eden, it's like the proper environment for humans is a walled garden where we can keep some of the predators outside so that we can survive, because we're just so squishy and easy and tasty, I'm sure, and all these things, but we're kind of minimizing risk and danger to human beings. I think that's one of the things the culture tries to do, is to try and mitigate against arbitrary accidents and things. But then I also think if a culture gets too good at that, to the point where everything is just completely safe, all the walls are made of rubber and there's no sharp edges and there's no potential risk ever of anything, I think that human beings would hate that as much as they would hate being naked in the Sahara Desert and just left there, you know? It's like it's like the yin and yang symbol. It's like we want to be right in the middle between order and chaos. Yeah. And we're not really happy otherwise.
If the garden was really the best place, we'd still be there.
Mm-hmm.
All of us.
Yeah.
So it can't possibly be true. We were there.
Mm-hmm. We
wouldn't have screwed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like we kind of also have this weird, like, we were talking about this the other day, Robin and I, but there's like a capacity in our head to kind of, we want to figure everything out, and maybe we collectively go off in certain directions. And I think like one of the things we're doing with science is like, oh, let's all check out the physical makeup of existence. Maybe there's answers there. And there definitely are some. I mean, the fact of the cell phone and computers and everything we have from modern technology is crazy. But it's not ultimately, we're not finding ultimate meaning from it. And I think maybe, you know, maybe it's just absolutely unavoidable, unnecessary to kind of go off and have this big objective reality misadventure in some way. And hopefully, my hope would be that we can come back to some more wholesome, simpler ways of living. And because I don't know how, for example, people live in places like New York City or Toronto. It's just complete removal from nature, like you touched on earlier. That just doesn't seem like it serves people ultimately in the end. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but...
Well, where's the meaning, I guess, is... Like, some of these huge journeys we're on, they're beautiful. But if you're really trying to solve the mystery of it all, what we are before and what we are after this life is probably only known in those two spaces, if it can be known.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's beautiful to look for all that and to reach out and to think big and to marvel and, you know, but does understanding what's in the night sky, does it stop you from, like, losing your breath for a moment? Like, think of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Isn't he still amazed?
Yeah, it doesn't take away from the sense of awe you feel, right? Yeah.
So can you just, like, can we cut away all of it and still be human, amazed by the utter tininess of ourselves and yet the utter hugeness of ourselves?
Yeah,
because it's all true, and in places where you get crammed into building